Welcome to this explainer. Today we're doing something pretty incredible. We are going to pry open the black box of North Korea, and we're doing it using nothing but open source mapping data and satellite imagery. We're talking about a nation famously known as the Hermit Kingdom, right? A place defined by its extreme isolation and strict control. But here's the thing. Today, we aren't relying on state-approved tours. We're not looking at carefully curated propaganda. Instead, we're looking straight down from space. We're using orbital technology to see what is actually happening on the ground.
So it begs the question, how exactly do you uncover the secrets of a country that flat out refuses to let you inside? Just think about the sheer geographical puzzle this kind of extreme isolation presents to the rest of the world. How do you report on a repressive regime when physical borders are completely closed off to journalists, to researchers, and to the general public? Well, for decades, the answer was simple. You guess. You try to piece together rumors and whatever highly controlled state media they put out. But today, we have a completely different tool set that absolutely changes the game.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, mapping the Hermit Kingdom. Second, inside the military machine. Third, urban centers. Fourth, the countryside. Fifth, the bubble of Pyongyang. And finally, the people behind the borders.
To bypass all that strict control, we rely heavily on one specific methodology, and that is satellite mapping. Basically, this is the use of high-resolution orbital imagery combined with just vast amounts of open-source data to meticulously chart geography and track infrastructure. It literally allows us to bypass physical borders. The regime can stop a person at a border crossing for sure, but they absolutely cannot stop a satellite from capturing pixels from orbit.
All right, let's get into part one, mapping the Hermit Kingdom and bypassing that extreme isolation. There's a brilliant quote from our source material that says, "Through satellite imagery, expert insights, and of course, maps, hidden aspects of its economy, society, military, and daily life are revealed." And that really hits the nail on the head. By utilizing immense open-source databases, like Access DPRK by Jacob Bogle, and the deep research of experts like Martin Williams, we can finally see these hidden aspects. By combining raw orbital data with expert analysis, a completely new, unvarnished picture of the country actually emerges. When we really crunch this data, four distinct, hidden realities start to take shape. First, we can map the hidden economy. We see exactly where the factories are and where the resources flow. Second, we can outline societal structures, mapping out how communities are physically walled off or connected to one another. Third, we can pinpoint military installations. And fourth, incredibly, we can even catch glimpses of the daily life of citizens just by tracking markets and infrastructure usage over time.
Let's move into our second section, inside the military machine and uncovering the arsenal.
0. That is exactly how much ground access is required to uncover a staggering amount of mapping data regarding their massive military installations. Think about that for a second. We literally need 0 spies on the ground to tell us where a new base is being constructed. The open source community can track the exact coordinates of air bases, naval ports, and artillery positions simply by watching the physical Earth change from above. These satellites act kind of like a giant X-ray machine. They pierce right through the state propaganda, letting us see exactly where and how the regime distributes its armed forces. State media might broadcast a beautifully choreographed military parade, but the satellite maps? They show the true, massive, and honestly sometimes startling scale of military infrastructure spread out across the entire landscape. It gives us the hard, empirical truth of their military footprint.
Next up, Section 3. Urban centers, the engineered cities.
When we look straight down at these cities, we are not seeing organic, sprawling neighborhoods. What we're actually seeing is the regime's literal infrastructure of control. We see what are essentially engineered cities. Satellite imagery reveals a very deliberate structuring, plazas, thoroughfares, and residential blocks that are all purposefully organized to maximize observation and maintain strict control over the population. The architecture itself is functioning as a tool of the regime.
Which brings us to Section 4, the countryside and its hidden reality.
The mapping reveals this picture of intense, stark inequality. In the urban centers, you've got curated infrastructure and highly visible resources designed primarily for regime loyalists. But the second you transition out into the countryside, the lack of resources is just glaring. Satellites reveal a deeply impoverished, geographically isolated reality that the government is desperately trying to keep hidden from the global view. The contrast between the two is written right there in the terrain.
Now for Section 5. The bubble of Pyongyang and the capital's illusion.
You see, the whole system relies on these intense layers of geographical isolation. It starts way out at the heavily fortified borders, ensuring no one gets in or out. Then you have that massive, impoverished countryside acting as a giant buffer zone. And finally, culminating right in the center, you have the Pyongyang Bubble, which is a literal fortress of illusion.
We always have to remember that Pyongyang is a showcase city. It was built specifically to trick the eye and distract from the impoverished reality lying just outside its city limits. When state media releases footage, or when a rare tourist is actually allowed to visit, this is what they are shown. The wide avenues, the massive monuments. But our maps tell us the truth. Pyongyang is not the reality of North Korea. It's a carefully constructed, resource-heavy illusion meant to project power. And our open-source satellite data clearly marks exactly where that illusion ends and the reality of the broader country begins.
And finally, Section 6, the people behind the borders, getting down to the human element.
So how do we get from pixels orbiting in space down to actual human realities? It's really a three-step process. First, you capture that high-resolution imagery. Second, you apply deep, expert geopolitical analysis. And third, the most vital part, you reveal those hidden daily lives of the citizens. By doing this, we can actually see informal markets forming, we can track the dirt paths people walk every day, and we give visibility to a population that has been forced into total isolation.
The Hermit Kingdom has always relied on darkness and isolation to maintain its strict grip. But with open-source data exploding and high-resolution satellites constantly watching from above, mapping the unmappable has become our new reality. So it really leaves us with one massive question. How long can a regime truly hide its people from the world when the entire world is looking right down at them? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.